my dear Divine Feminine. Been seeing a lot of rainbows lately. And you know what's funny is I feel like I'm remembering something that you told me, but I know that you didn't. And yet somehow I know that you did. I don't know, I really don't understand all of this magic stuff you talk about, all this twin flame stuff, and yet I feel like somewhere inside me I do. I don't know, I feel like I'm just taking everything far too seriously, but whenever I see the rainbows, I think of you and I think of one of my favorite childhood songs. You know, the one with Kermit the Frog? The lovers, the dreamers, and me. And I keep hearing, I don't know, this little nugget of wisdom, I guess, about how rainbows are indicators of new cycles, new beginnings, of magic. And I keep thinking about something. I know you mentioned it, but you didn't really explain it. And I guess maybe it was meant to be that way. And I, in all seriousness, could have asked for more information. You know what's funny is I'm realizing how many times I didn't do that. How many times I let myself get so caught up in the seriousness of life that it was like all this wisdom, all this wit, and all this magic that you were imparting on me, that you weren't teaching me, you weren't like nannying me with it, you were just trying to share and revel in the beauty of it with me. And for me, I was so focused on the 3D that it was like that airplane flying in the background. It was like this loud buzzing in my ears that I could hear, and yet it didn't quite make sense. It's like it sunk in, but I still didn't get the words. Like a dream where you know you had the most intense, beautiful conversation with somebody, and then you wake up and all you know is that it was an incredible conversation, but you can't recall the words. And you feel on one hand like it's just a dream, it's just an absurdity. What are you worried about having missed? And on the other hand, it feels like you had the most beautiful experience, and yet you were so drunk that you woke up and couldn't remember any of it. Yet you know that that wasn't true. I feel like I feel like I've been like an over alert guard dog, and that I've been living with them too. Like my karmic cycles and all the ways they've manifested in terms of people and thoughts and cycles, that they have become like these hounds following me. And sometimes I can just ignore them. It's like the karmics sometimes, where they'll be barking and barking and barking and nagging and scheming and planning, and I don't know how I do it, but sometimes I guess I just King of Cups it. I just shut my emotions down, and kind of like that meme with the dog in the room full of fire just going, "This is fine." And then there are other times that those, oh man, the karmic cycles, the people, everything, it just screeches in my mind and I cannot ignore it for the life of me. And then it starts to spread all this shadow and toxicity, and it makes me feel like if I am so stuck in such an environment that is so noisy that I cannot hear anything else, then I cannot possibly have changed all that much. And I look at you, dear feminine, and I feel like you're more like either that small quiet dog in the background that's aware of what's going on, that yips just a little bit to let people know that she's there. She's willing to growl if she feels threatened, sure, but she really knows her place and her power, and she doesn't need to be as loud, or she doesn't need people to know that she's there. And you're also kind of like a cat who just sits there purring, knowing she's got claws and teeth and the ability to escape any situation, kind of like a cat who sits on a counter with a glass next to it. And you know that she sometimes will get a bee in her bonnet and knock that glass off the counter and just kind of smirk at you. You can't hear her laughing in the 3D, but you know in the 5D that she's just amused, like, what? Are you going to do something about that? If you didn't want the glass knocked over, why did you set it where I could lay next to it? And why did you leave it there knowing that I, on occasion, have a penchant for knocking glasses over and just being an imp like that? And yet that cat doesn't do it often enough that you never quite know when she's going to do it, and you might get caught up in the loud cawing and raucous of blue jays and crows and starlings that you're not paying attention to what that mischievous little cat might do. And then when she does it, it's like it brings you back into this dimension. And as much as you want to be mad at that darned cat, you can't. You're just going, yeah, she's mine and she knows me well enough. And she knows when I need a little absurdity and all the frustration that you might have felt at having to clean up the beverage, whatever it's spilt on, even if it's spilt on something important, your memoirs, your computer, your phone, whatever it is, you just can't hold that angry feeling. It just goes as you look at that cat and you go, despite it all, I love you, and I guess I did need that a little bit. It's funny all the ways that I can look around at things going on in my life, and yet all of them, feminine, remind me of you in some kind of way. I feel like I can remember a distant conversation that we had where you tried to tell me that what I jumped into was not just some random mistake. It wasn't just me ruining everything. It was important. It was to show me my cycles. It was my karma for not really appreciating you, for taking you for granted. And I feel like that's exactly what has happened. And now I feel like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the absurdity of it all, about how even now, when I feel like, I don't know, feminine, half of me feels like there's nothing I've ever wanted more so much in my life than to sit with you again in the quiet, just to go for a drive or a ride. You used to take me so many places that I never expected, where I, in my mind, had this big expectation that you were going to take me somewhere where I would have a ton of expectations. And I was always so afraid of surprises because surprises usually did not go well. And you would just tell me to shut up, sit down, and enjoy the ride. And then we would arrive, and it would be like some quiet, serene lake beach that took us out of time, where cell phone signals were gone, and if we decided to never leave that space, no one would ever be able to find us unless we wanted them to. And then sometimes it'd be a rest stop along the side of a highway that I never would have thought to have adventured to. And when you take me there, it seems like it would just simply be I don't know, irrelevant. Like there wouldn't be anything special there. And yet, I can remember how you could show me that a tree that I may have passed by 1,000 times can be special and important. You might say, look, masculine, look at these little initials sneakily carved on the side of the tree. And it wasn't you and it wasn't me, but I see our initials. Or you might say, look, that is an oak tree. Do you know the meaning of an oak tree? Or look at this cherry blossom tree. Do you know that they don't actually produce cherries? Or do you know how you can tell the difference between a genuine cherry tree and a cherry blossom tree? You show me so many things. And I've realized over time that they aren't just things that I don't see, they are things that most people don't see. And I'm starting to realize I remember you used to ask me to tell you why I loved you, about the reasons why you love me or why I love you. Now, see, feminine, I'm mixing it all up. I feel like those, I feel like we went from you asking me to tell you why I love you, what I love about you that are things that don't do anything for me, that aren't transactional. And now I'm starting to learn how to do that with myself. And I feel like that's a lesson that you knew that I needed to learn the whole time. And yet, and it's like you knew that first I needed to learn to do that with you, to sit and really examine my motivations and the ways that I think about relationships and to think about what a relationship really is. Is it all about transactions? Is love really just about what someone else does for you and what you do for them? And once I saw that that definitely was not true, that genuine love without condition has very little to do with whether or not the person does anything for you or not, and much more to do with the reasons why they do it and how they do it, then I started to see that in others, in the karmics around me, the friends, the family, the lovers. And now I'm arriving in this place where I'm asking myself that question. What do I love about myself that doesn't do anything for anyone? That doesn't even really do anything for me except make me feel kind of adorable, if that makes any sense. Like, I used to hate so much the way that I overthought everything and procrastinated stuff away. But now I think it's almost like I'm hearing your voice, except it's also mine too, saying, don't you know how adorable you are? You know how adorable you are when you pretend to be mad at me about things that don't matter and hide what you're really mad about? Do you know how adorable you are when you sit and triple think everything, talking yourself out of all these amazing things you're fully capable of and can do? I'm just hearing that again and again. Do you know how adorable you are? Or you're so silly. You're adorable. And I feel like I'm starting to tell myself that. Like I went from this place of taking in the lesson that you taught me about getting up in the morning and making mornings important and looking in the mirror and thinking about what I'm grateful for. I ask myself that so much. I can't tell you how much I miss when you used to ask me that every day and how stupid I feel for taking that for granted, for treating it like it was some scheme, some plan to make me fall in love with you, as if you ever had to do anything. You never did. That's something I didn't tell you before, and I feel like even just telling you once will never be enough. I feel like even though you already know it, I want to spend the rest of my life just I don't know, even just waiting for moments to come that I know will come because it's you and you're going to do these fabulous, amazing things that you do. And I won't even need to wait for them to happen. They will just happen. And I want to be that masculine who is like feminine. Do you see yourself right now? who wouldn't want you? Who wouldn't fall in love with you without you doing anything to earn it? You are genuinely divine, genuinely feminine. You are divine feminine. And you are an empress, and you never needed to do anything to earn my love. Heck, I can remember times in the days when we met when I thought there is no way that I could get the attention of such a feminine and hold it, and yet, I don't know, there was something about you. It was like I could feel that you were just as afraid as I was, and yet on the outside, somehow you projected this seductive confidence, like you couldn't care less about what I did or if you had my attention, and somehow that just drove me wild. Especially because I can remember the way you used to listen to me. The way that you just trusted what I said. It didn't matter if if I lied or told the truth, and the truth is I didn't, because I knew I didn't have to. I knew that if I that there was no judgment, none whatsoever. And I knew that whenever I needed that space, when I needed a kind face and just someone to listen and just to believe all the crazy absurdities that come through my mind, I knew I could always come to you to find that. We used to talk. We used to listen. We used to talk like lovers do. And in this separation, both the times when we connect sometimes and times that we go spaces with absolutely no 3D connection, I find I've never wanted more than anything than just to talk with you like lovers do. I heard that song just today, and it reminded me of you, and that reminded me of how everything reminds me of you. The look on your face, the things that your lips do when you're angry or when you're sad or when you're thinking deliciously impish thoughts. The way that your eyes look when you're sad, when you're disappointed with me, when you're happy, when you're excited, when you're looking at me and it feels like you're looking through me, like you're looking at every cell in my body, and it makes me shiver and quiver, and it feels like the best pleasure and the worst torture at the same time. I'm realizing, feminine, that I have been so afraid to be seen, and yet, after having known you and been in union with you before, I feel like I spent all this time and all my life running from being seen for real. And yet, I want that more than ever now. I miss it so much. I can remember all the time I feel like I wasted it worrying about what other people would think if I did corny romantic things with you, if I went on vacations, if I took time off work from time to time just to enjoy some absurdity in life with you, with the kids, with family, with friends, if I worked on this enlightenment stuff, if I went dancing with you. I was so worried about what other people would think and not about what I would think, not about how I would feel about myself if we weren't together, if we were separated, or even now I'm looking at my life and I feel like there's one timeline where the birds are singing and there's sunsets and sunrises and adventures all around that I could go and enjoy if I just stopped worrying about what anybody else thought but me. And then in this other timeline, I stay stuck in these wash cycles of toxicity and pain and ego. And I feel like I can see myself in both timelines, except it's far ahead in the future where I'm like 88 years old. And I'm looking back at my life now thinking the choice that I make is going to determine what I see when I am old and senile and sitting there, and that I'm thinking about, what do I want to see? Do I want to see that I chose what my parents did? Do I want to see that I did exactly what was expected of me by people that, quite frankly, couldn't identify happiness if it was hanging out of their nose like an obvious booger that everyone was pointing at, and they still sat there going, I don't see what you see? Or do I want to be a version of me that, when somebody says it can't be done, I prove that it can? Do I want to be old and looking back at the adventures I had, at the risks I took, at how many absurd messes that I made, and yet not only survived but thrived and had fun doing it? Or do I want to look back and at a life that I hated, that I did because I couldn't let myself not do what I thought was expected of me? I don't know, feminine. I feel like I'm kind of in this absurd space. I really don't know what to think of it most of the time, but I do know I will be reaching out to you soon. I'm just not sure which way to do it. I guess I'm still trying to learn how to not take everything so darn seriously. I feel like somehow that's exactly the lesson that you would be teaching me without even trying right now. Like you are, even though you're not around. Like you're showing me, I don't know. I feel like I can hear you laughing at me saying, "Masculine, you take yourself so seriously. You're really not that important, you know." And somehow, whereas if it was anybody else saying it in any other way, I'd probably take offense. But with you, from you, I know what you mean. And when I trust myself to know what you mean and I don't take it so seriously, I know that you're saying that I am amazing and incredible and incomparable, and that you love me in ways that I really don't deserve. And yet, you're pointing out that really I'm not that important in the wider scheme of things, and that I should stop taking myself so damn seriously. I feel like I'm figuring out that lesson, and it's helping me not worry so much about having the perfect set of words, of saying the right thing all the time, of not screwing everything up. And I don't know, like one part of me is afraid that I'm going to take too long and somehow spirit will keep us apart because I'll have run out of time. And then there's this like song in my heart that's just telling me, I don't know, love is all you need. Just do something radically different. Just do it. And I'm going to, feminine. And somehow I feel like the fear of running out of time, of not doing it right, I feel like it's already leaving me, and it's just old me kind of trying to hold on to it because I'm just not used to living without it. But I have this, I don't know, I've been having these dreams of us connecting in old ways and new ways, and it's exciting. And I feel like I'm finally releasing that need to do it exactly right. And as I figure out how to do that, I feel braver. I feel like the cowardly lion who's finally realized he always had courage inside him. And I so look forward to whenever the right moment is, that divinely timed moment that I've sprung forward into. When I think of exactly what to say to you, and you respond back to me beautifully in just the way that I really should have expected the whole time. Because I know you've already learned not to take life so darn seriously. And feminine, I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to that moment when I get to talk to you like lovers do.